when the Gen X generation that grew up playing with Star Wars toys are dead and gone? Are the old stuff gonna be worth anything? Let's talk about it. That's time for another video. Today we're gonna discuss if the toys from the Generation X era is gonna be worth anything once guys like me pass away. And we're gonna focus mostly on Star Wars, but what about other toy lines also? Are they gonna be worth anything? Well, I've seen this question pop up a lot. As you can see, someone brought this up on the Rebel Forums message board not too long ago. I see it come up every now and then that us in our Generation X era are already mostly past 50 or getting there, and we've got dying off, and all those collections we have is going to flood the market. They're not going to be worth anything at all. So is that true? If you're a younger collector, are you going to be able to buy a carded Lobot for $10? I mean, it's got to drop, right? Once us people die out, who's going to want to buy them anymore? The younger kids got Hasbro era Star Wars toys. Ugh. Yeah, they're going to hold value. So what's going to happen? Well, before we get into that too, I want to look at one more post because I read this one and it was just strange. And here it is. How come Star Wars action figures from the 80s aren't valuable like everyone thought they would be? These things, even loose, common figures loose are going close to $100 nowadays. Oh, yeah. I assume you mean the Kenner line of Star Wars action figures. I collected them, and the only ones that are valuable are the rare ones with defects in them, like a 2 left-armed stormtrooper. I ain't even heard of that one. Or a snaggletooth that was short. The short snaggletooth not worth as much as the tall one. My mom made me sell all my action figures in a garage sale for 25 cents each, and because of my child... Hold on, can't see it. I said it was unhealthy to have them at my age. Only collectors pay the money for the action figures. Kenner made them cheap, so they fall apart like the R2-D2's leg will fall off easily. I never heard of R2-D2 lose his leg, ever. So some action figures that fall apart sold better than the ones who, and I'll be honest, I didn't click to read more. It was just so crazy I didn't read more. But we're going to look to see if other things have tanked in value once that generation's kind of moved on. And I'll say this about Star Wars, it's still popular today. I don't care if you're not Generation X, and I don't care what you think about the Disney movies. Star Wars is still popular today. You can walk into any store and see Star Wars stuff everywhere. If we're talking about just the original 3 movies, and then we didn't have the prequels, and we didn't have Disney era, then I might could say, yes, Star Wars is gonna tank a little bit, because it's not gonna grow a new fan base. But Star Wars is pop culture, and there's a lot of reasons to collect Star Wars stuff. Maybe you're a fan of the Star Wars movies, of course. Maybe you're a fan of how movie merchandise is sold. You're going to have Star Wars in your collection if you're collecting that. Maybe you're a fan of pop culture. You got to have Star Wars in your collection there. But I do give you that most people in my generation that collect Star Wars toys are collecting them because they played with them as kids. But there's younger people that collect them also that just like the history of them. And yes, the market may drop a little bit, may go up a little bit. It's going to go up and down. But it's not going to tank. People think it's going to tank. I don't see that coming. And let's look at some other things on eBay that generations have passed that still sell for a lot of money. Let's start with Elvis Presley's Sun Records. Now, what I know about Elvis, because my dad was an Elvis fan, still alive, doesn't collect it, but I know Sun Records are worth a lot because he wasn't under the Sun Record label long, and it was more of a regional thing back then, so they were hard to come by. And there's one that sold for $1,900. Now you could say, hey, that's somebody that grew up on Elvis. They're in probably their 80s now, but they're still alive. They're still collecting. There's one that didn't sell. I don't know what the sale price is on it, and another one's $750. Now, true, I don't know what these were going for 20 years ago, but I know they were going for a lot, and it's still a lot today. Like I said, it might go down some. It's not gonna tank. But Elvis fans are still alive. And, there's a lot of Elvis fans that didn't grow up on Elvis that will buy a Elvis Sun record. You got record collectors. You got Elvis fans that are newer, younger Elvis fans. You've got people that into music history that would buy it. But let's look at something else. And Elvis is a good example because he is pop culture. He's a pop ultra icon. like Star Wars is today. And let's look at this. Baseball cards from the 1963. Sold for $36,000. Now, I don't know the age of the guy who bought this, so you could say, yeah, he probably grew up going to baseball games with his pop, so he's buying this card. There's another one right there from 1936. Let's see. Let's say in 1936 you were a baby really into baseball and you have memories of it. Let's do 1936 subtract 2024. Let's see how old you are. 88. So let's say if you were 10 years old at the time, 98. There's not many 88, 98-year-olds somewhere in that ball field buying baseball cards on eBay, I'm sure. But there it goes. Sold for $27,000. And I guarantee you the person right there has no connection of seeing whoever this guy is. Joe, whatever his name is, Jim something. I'm sure he wasn't at the game watching him and everything. Looks more like a mugshot than a baseball card, but let's move on. How about some toys from the 1940s? Or how about this right in the middle, 1930s, $575. Seems like a lot of money for a little car. If you're gonna tell me that Butterfinger is bigger in pop culture than Star Wars, I'm gonna have to call you an idiot. Let's move on. How about this right here? Oh, some more toys. A vintage 50s little tin toy, $900. How about this little horse? It says it comes from the 1930s and 1950s, $750. Look at that, a trailer home toy. $4,000. You're telling me they're worth a lot because the people that bought them are still alive today? Look at this. A freaky, scary bunny. $3,000. How about this? Matchbox cards. Old Matchbox cards. $2,000, almost $3,000. How about a 1950s toy space station? $3,600. They're still going for a lot. How about Barbie? You go tell me, oh, well, Barbie's really big now. They got a new movie. Well, they got new Star Wars movies coming out also, so you can't use that excuse. There's a Barbie right there from the 60s. It's sold for a little under $3,000. There's another one, $27,000 with what? 9 bids. How about some old records of people you never even heard of? I don't know who Mike Peterson is. Anyway, some 33 people bidded on this 45 record for $1,875. What about these rare soul blues? Lonnie Lister. Who the hell is Lonnie Lister? For my generation, but somebody paid $510 for it. Here goes one for you. Cough drops. A box of cough drops. Well, I don't know what it sold for. They were asking $14,000 for it, but they got something for it. Or they had to get something for it. Box of cough drops. And you think your Star Wars toys are not going to be worth anything anymore because your generation has died out? This is Star Wars we're talking about here. We're not talking about the black hole. How about comic books? That's relevant today. Look at Batman. He's popular then. He's popular now. He's got new movies coming out. Kind of like Star Wars. He's a part of pop culture. There's a Batman comic sold for $14,000. 14.9 that is. How many bids? 88 bids. This is from 1939. You telling me people that only bid for this, these 88 people were alive reading comic books in 1939? Or is it still a lot because it's rare and it's part of pop culture? I'll go with because it's rare and part of pop culture. I can't even talk. How about comic books of people I've never even heard of? I don't know what Speed Comics is, but it sold for $6,288 from 1943. How about a guitar from the 60s? That one in the middle? Almost $17,000. Let's just say that. The only people that play that guitar growing up as a kid buy it? No. Here's an old toy bus from the 1920s. 16 bids. Sold for over $3,000. $3,500. Are you telling me that there was old people from the 1930s that played with this and that's why they bought it today? No. And here's the craziest one yet. A photo from 1910s of a guy shooting up heroin. I hope I said that right. And it sold for $4,500. Oh, are you really telling me there's some guy in his hundreds now saying, oh, I got to buy that picture? That reminds me of old Steve, my drug addict friend. No, they're not. How about a scary jack-o'-lantern thing from the 1900s? $4,200. God. What about some kind of old music system with a speaker on it? $8,500. What? And let's get back to something in the pop culture. Superman. Popular today? I would say not as popular as he was years ago, but he's still popular today. $6,399.99 with what? 69 bids.
69, dudes!
But wait a minute, they're still making Superman stuff today. He's still popular. Well, so is Star Wars. Why is it that Superman's still gonna hold value once people that grew up with that old-timey Spider-Man toy are dead and gone, but Star Wars isn't? Are you crazy? What about a Superman 10 toy from the 1950s? $3,150. How about Spider-Man on a pink motor scooter from the 1960s? $2,025. 31 bids. Spider-Man on a pink motor scooter. People still want it. You can't tell me that people want that because they grew up playing with it. Oh, I remember back in the 60s when I was a little kid, I used to play with this Spider-Man on a pink motor scooter. Not happening. Not happening. So, is Star Wars toys gonna lose their value when the Generation X kids grow up? When the newer generation doesn't have any attachment to it? No. Let me say again. Will it lose some value? It'll go up and down like it always had. Is it gonna crash? No. Sure, you're gonna have these older people dying out. You're gonna get more on the market, and today you can find a lot more stuff online thanks to Facebook Marketplace and eBay and stuff. Rare is still rare, but it's easier to find because it's easier to connect to people. And yes, your loose figures that's not in mint condition, that's been played with, loose joints, missing paint, are they gonna be worth a lot? They will probably go down a lot easier than the other stuff. But as time goes by, find them in mint condition, not all sticky. Got any of those sticky ones on card, the bubble hadn't fallen off? It's going to be harder and harder to find stuff in that good, pristine condition that most collectors want. I mean, I still see people out there today buying Mego Planet of the Apes, $6 million man. And these things aren't big in the pop culture anymore. Sure, they might have grew up on it, and they might tank a little bit too, at least something like $6 million man. But you still have toy collectors that's gonna want the old toys. Like you have old toy collectors now that like 10 toys. Got the pop culture collectors. You got the Star Wars collectors. You got the toy collectors. You got all kind of collectors buying stuff. It ain't just, oh, I grew up with that, let me buy it. Although that's a big part of it for a lot of us, that's not gonna be the thing when the next generation starts buying them. Sure, you'll have son that says, my dad used to have those. He had them around the house. He used to collect them. Let me collect them. But you're going to have other people that say, I love Star Wars. I love the older Star Wars stuff more than the newer stuff. Let me buy the old stuff. It kind of connects me to that time period even if I wasn't there. I mean, you got Star Wars fans that just want to own a piece of Star Wars history. At least that's what I think. Now, I asked this question on our Discord server, which you can sometimes find a link to in the description below. It changes for some reason. I got it set to not expire, but it still expires. But click the link on this video if you see it, and we'll see what happens. Let's see what they had to say. The worst says, in this case, yes, they will, 100%. These figures represented autology. I'm sure I said that wrong. And they will have the, oh God, he's using big words, fortitude to maintain their value and grow the value even furthermore in the future. Star Wars is mainstream cult, and these simple figures represent the starting point of the beginning of the cult. Star Wars will continue its foothold long into the future without any doubt. He says he's the worst. He says he's the worst, but that's the best. He sums it up like I do. This is the beginning of pop culture, not just Star Wars. Sure, there was some other things before it, but when you really get into pop culture, toys being used to sell a movie, you want Star Wars. So there's a lot of reasons to keep Star Wars, plus Star Wars is still alive today. You can say what you want to about current Disney Star Wars, and they kill Star Wars and all that. Star Wars is still popular today. And yeah, maybe 200 years from now when people are saying, what the heck is a Star Wars? And most of the toys have melted down to nothing. Maybe then you can get them cheap, but then it's going to be even harder to find them, so maybe not. Let me know what you think in the comments below.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.